Hi all, this is Skate, and today we're going to talk 268. And the 268, in my opinion, is the best tank destroyer at tier 10. Now that is a pretty bold opinion, I am aware. I imagine there's going to be lots of people who disagree in the comments, and lots of people who agree. Simply put, this thing has a bit of everything. It's got penetration, it's got good DPM, it's got good alpha, it's got good armor, it's got good mobility. Nowadays, it's got good gun depression as well. I mean, it may not seem massively significant on the face of it, but it's got 7 degrees of gun depression now, which pretty much means you can make the tank that bit more flexible in terms of positioning, and more importantly, it massively increases the armor effective thickness. And that's quite important for this tank because, I mentioned this in my previous 268 video, this tank has an IS-8 hull, and when you look at it, for example in Garage, it says it has 187mm of frontal armor. That's technically wrong. The upper casement has 187mm of frontal armor. The 2 upper plates, which is just below the casement, has 120mm, the same as the IS-8 hull. Now, as we all know, the 268 has very, very troll armor, but in terms of dealing with it, that information I think is very useful, and the reason I say that, quite simply, if this thing is using its full degrees of gun depression, don't shoot the 2 upper plates, because they'll be so aggressively angled you're more than likely to bounce. When that's occurring, you need to shoot the upper casement, and then when this thing's on the flat, don't waste your time shooting the upper casement, shoot the 2 upper plates, because they have less armor, and on the flat, they're a lot easier to pen. Now, in the last video I did on this tank, I went into a full breakdown with Armor Inspector, showing the correct places to shoot, because, like I said, this tank can be incredibly troll. But of course, as the 268 driver, you need to be the person to know that. And I really do think that is something which can make or break a 268 driver. There is a Leo crying an awful lot in this game. Apparently it's my fault, and it's everyone else's fault that he has 0 damage. It happens to all of us, happens to me, happens to you, no point crying about it, get on with it. Check out the shop, by the way. And that's why I say this tank has a little bit of everything. A max HE roll 1200 damage on the grill, which bumps me up to 5700 damage, 6100 damage, and 1200 damage blocked. But back on the armor, you tend to find people try and angle this thing left and right when they're about to get shot at, or all the way left. Your best option is pointing directly at them and trying to use some gun depression, because that obviously increases the thickness. And if you turn left, your entire right side of your tank is vulnerable, easy pickings. If you turn right, the entire left side of your tank is easy pickings. And this game, by the way, is a loss, but I wanted to include it anyway because it's a bit of a heartbreaker. 7,138 damage. 3 kills, we made 44,000 credits, so we can't complain really, and 1,450 base XP. Bit of a bummer, sucked a bit, but I thought it'd be an interesting one to include. While that's going on quickly, we'll get back on the armor. So yeah, when you're on the flat and you're pointing at something you've got to cover, you see people all the way left trying to turn. I'd rather just drive straight head on at someone, because there's more probability of bouncing a shot. Yeah, a little wiggle left and right really helps, but turning at that point really doesn't help. And then the other thing to consider with this, which is more to the point of the left and right I just mentioned, you can bait people to shoot the left or right hand side of your tank. As an example, if you're on a corner, there's a target on the left hand side of you, so a left hand corner. If you jam your tank onto the corner, completely hiding the left hand side, just overexposing the right at a very aggressive angle, you'd be surprised how many people shoot at that, thinking there's their opportunity while your gun isn't in line with them, and they get a bounce because of how aggressively angled it is, which in theory allows you to quickly reposition your tank and come around and give them a shot. Obviously there is that little rangefinder on top, by the way, which is a big old weakness, but it's very small, and the more of the gun depression you use and the more you move around, the harder it is to hit. Lower plate, yeah, it's pathetic, as you would expect on most tanks and as it is on the IS-8. And then the other thing to watch out for is obviously tanks flanking you, because the armour on the back allows HE to be attracted to it. That patch on the back of the casement has 50mm of armour, and the bit between the tracks, just on the engine, has only 30mm. In other words, frontal armour is pretty damn good. The back sucks, as you'd expect for most tanks. You don't really want to be giving people the back of your tank though, do you? And then we look at the gun. Now this thing, it does have a really nice gun. In my opinion, it's not too dissimilar to the... Well, actually, I would say tier for tier, the BL-10 on the ISU-152 is obviously way better. But it's pretty much the same gun, except this has less damage per minute than the tier 8 equivalent. In other words, playstyle-wise, I think this is very similar to the ISU-152, except this tank is a lot more durable than an ISU-152. It's also a lot more mobile. But that is nice, because you can learn the playstyle at, say, for example, tier 8. Tier 7, in fact, with the SU-152, you learn the playstyle of the tank and you develop it as you go up the tiers. It's surprising how many lines don't fit exactly the same playstyle, as with these they pretty much do, it's just one's more durable because it's going up a tier. But the penetration on this thing, 303. That is more than enough to contend with virtually every single tank. Yeah, you can switch to the 380 heat. There's rare circumstances when you need to. I'm going to put some heat through the turrets of the E100 in a minute. And I'm going to do the same with the YAG as it comes around the corner now. You don't need to do that necessarily, because you will penetrate with that much AP penetration. However, when you really need to guarantee it, because you know there's an E100 behind you and a YAG in front of you, so you need to make it count, yeah, it's in those circumstances where I will use the heat. I think that's one of the reasons I like big guns so much, because you've got the HE as well, which means there's so much there's so much variation in terms of ammo you can use. I mean, 90mm of penetration. It's more than that tank there has, as I pointed out in the video yesterday, with its 85mm of penetration. But that being said, YAG has 1200 average HE damage. This thing has 960 with a max roll of 1200 HE damage. Nonetheless, this thing has a better reload and better penetration on the HE, which means it is very workable, and it is very usable. I mean, like when you're in a medium tank, if you see something on 100 hit points, you've got to carefully aim your shot to try and make it count. In something like this, you don't. You just splash it in the face. That's one of the reasons I enjoy this so much, because those things can make all the difference on a tank like this. It's quicker to finish low hit point targets, and that makes it very fun. And very annoying for the person who's getting splashed in the face with HE. And then of course you've got lightly armoured tanks like that 50B we hit earlier, or in this circumstance. I'm going to quickly turn, the IS-8 is going to rock around, we don't even really need to aim at him, we just fire at him. And we're going to kill him with the HE. And now I'm going to try and leg it, because I'm imagining the 50B is going to come around the rear end of me, because that's where he was last seen. He has the same idea as me though. He's relocating, and he's a lot faster than me, so he's relocated quicker. And here's a fatal mistake on his behalf. He's just fired a premium round at me, completely unnecessary. And I think if he fired a normal round, he would have finished me, but he did fire a premium. Now, what I'm trying to do here is position myself so when he runs around the corner, I can just splash him. I say splash him. With his hit points, I'm hoping to get a full penetrating HE shot through the side. But he doesn't come running round. And now it's a stalemate in a case of whoever's going to make a mistake. But with my hit points as low as they are, I really can't afford to take any chances. And my shots need to count. Now, as far as I'm concerned, he's just put one into the side of me. He's just shot one here. So, I'm thinking he is, well, got one left in the chamber. I could be wrong. I was really hoping that would penetrate. But here we go. I'm going to get one into the side of him with AP, and I'm going to run as quick as I can, stick the adrenaline on, and get behind here, hoping I would have been reloaded in time as well, but he backs out, which leaves us in another stalemate. I don't think he's going to fall for the same thing again of me trying to reverse out. So that thing I mentioned earlier in trying to get him to shoot the side, I'm going to try and do that in a bid of hopefully trying to get him to bounce that last shell of his. And as soon as he does, if I'm right and he's got one, I can then leg it out and shoot him in the face with HE. And being as time is low, we don't really have the chance to mess around. And unless I stay close to him, he may go for a reload. Now, as long as I'm close, obviously people worry about reloading because then they're left vulnerable. But there it is. He's gone off the side of my tank and he actually fired HE, which did no damage, which means I can quickly finish him with a HE. But yeah, in that circumstance, he had enough time between our engagements for him to reload. But staying close to him, if he went on a reload, that leaves him very vulnerable. So I don't think he could afford to take that chance then. No premium time this time, so I lost 4,000 credits, but we did 5,700 damage and 1,500 base XP. And then we're into the last game of the video. One thing I do have to comment actually, I try my best to choose the replays I put in a video about a tank quite carefully. And the reason I do that, well, it's very simple actually. I try to highlight all the strengths and weaknesses of the tank. Or I try to pick games which I think are A, interesting to watch, and B, give good examples on what I try to do in the tank. Or when I'm trying to explain things like I did about the armor earlier, these replays highlights it more than one occasion. So in theory, they are good visuals to go with the explanation. As long as my explanation, of course, stays on topic and doesn't go on too many tangents. So, on this one so far, I'm going to play the medium tank, because no one else is. But like I said, this is a 268. In my opinion, this is the best all-rounder. Yeah, it doesn't have Death Star Alpha. It doesn't have Death Star armor either. It's got much better armor. It doesn't have Jaegeru Alpha, but it's got a very consistent, very high damage gun. Combine that with the fact of good rate of fire, good DPM, good penetration, good armor, everything I've already explained. Yeah. This is a solid tank, so if I'm going to be a medium tank, I'm going to want to do it in a 268 if I have to. Now this is a perfect example of what I was on about with the armor earlier, and this game will highlight how much damage we can potentially block. I mean, by there we used the full gun depression of the tank, we hid the lower plates, angled them very aggressively, and that allowed us to get a bounce. And when you're using this sort of position, the lower plate is completely hidden, and as long as you're moving in between those shots, you will make a lot of bounces. Okay, granted we didn't bounce that one, but to be honest, I had an 800 alpha roll in exchange. I don't mind not bouncing that one. So we've bounced 2 there, 3 we've bounced so far. I was hoping to put one through his turret then, but I'm very conscious of where the IS-7 is. Don't bounce that one, but if you notice, we've gone very high trying to get the shot. But again, this is the armor of the 268. It's very, very troll, and it's very annoying. But that's why obviously you do everything you can to maximize your chances of a bounce. Yes, I'm well aware it doesn't work every single time, but if you're just sitting there wide open and not even trying, they're going to penetrate an awful lot more. Now, moving on, I want to go after this Centurion. He's very, very low hit points. As I pop around the corner though, there is a Death Star. And I now have his undivided attention. Now I managed to get one into him, and he didn't fire, which in theory means when I go back, that's when he's going to attempt, because he's already waiting in on this position. So I get one more into him, and he bounces his return shot on me. And that again highlights why this tank is all about angling. He shot the right hand side of my tank, which meant I was a really hard target for him. If he shot, he might have hit the gun mantlet actually. But if he shot the left hand side of my tank, if I overexposed it because of the angle we were at, he could have even penetrated me with Hesh, absolutely no problem at all. So I personally think one of the best tricks with this tank is just to keep moving. And in this circumstance now, it doesn't really matter because it's just cleanup crew time. So just trying to get that last little bit of damage done. Hopefully I'll get one more into this guy before anyone else does. We do, and then someone else finishes him off. That means we finish up this game with 6,219 damage and 2,820 damage blocked. We also got ourselves a Scout Medal because we played Mr. Medium Tank in our 268. We spotted 5 tanks in total, which is not bad when you consider we're a tank destroyer. But we're a very mobile one with usable armor, blah blah blah. I'm not repeating myself. It's a fantastic tank. And just to polish off the video, here's a couple of ammo racks for you. And for no other reason other than they are satisfying. They're quite fun as well. Let's call it balance for all those times those medium tanks circle you. So in your turretless tank destroyer, the best way is through the front of the turret and in the first 30 seconds of the game. This one made me laugh. Double tap with a 704 on a T54. I can honestly say I've got more ammo racks on the 268 line of tanks than any other line of tanks. They just seem to ammo rack very well. Which again is another added bonus as to why I think the 268 is probably the best all-round tier 10 tank destroyer. That's it for this video though. I hope you have enjoyed it and I will catch you in the next one. Bye bye.